Folks, BetOnline is your number one source for all of your sports betting needs this season. From baseball, golf, soccer, right all the way up to the top fights in the UFC and MMA and boxing and all that stuff. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action and use promo code BLEAV, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online. The game starts here. Folks, June 23rd is an infamous day in Flyers history. You know, the Richards and Carter trades, the Briz contract, the Luke Shen trade. We laughed, we've cried. It's a lot of crying on this date, but for once, June 23rd brought something good into our lives. And that would be the news that came out yesterday, that Matvei Michkov, the pride and joy of last year's draft, the potential steal for the Flyers at 7 last year, will be leaving his team in Russia, SKA St. Petersburg, SKA St. Petersburg, as we like to always talk about it on Flight. Pick it up. But jokes aside.
Pick it up.
Jokes aside, this is really exciting. He's going to come over and play hockey for, this is at least the report. You know, this isn't like 100%, but like multiple sources have said it, reliable sources. So
Yeah. I don't think he's actually signed the ELC yet. We haven't had that confirmed. Hi, everybody. It's Italian Joe joining from BSH
yes,
Podcast.
I was just about to get into that, but yeah, it's like, no, it's all good, my guy. It's all good. Yeah, I was just going to, I don't know, record my draft preview with Maddie this week. I wasn't expecting anything big to really jump on a podcast, but like, we didn't have anything in the works until midweek. And this news is too big to not talk about. This is huge.
Huge. You're talking about crying on June 23rd, but all of us Flyers fans, this June 23rd, we're crying tears of joy.
Tears of joy for once. It's a good feeling, and it's such a bummer that there's the usual suspects out there, Mike Silsky, who are just trying to rain on our parade, just shit all over this great news, because this is great news. This is exciting. This is the most genuinely exciting moment. I mean, obviously drafting Michkov in the first place was super exciting, but like the fact that he's going to come over 2 years before we expected him is it's huge. You know, it is one of the most exciting moments in recent Flyers history by a mile.
Yep. I mean, just today I was listening to the Flyperbole flashback where Steve recorded at the BSH draft party, which, by the way, we're having another one this coming Friday at Chickies and Pete's on Packer.
Yeah,
show up.
Don't go to Parks. Don't go to Parks.
Don't go to Parks.
Go to Chickies.
Especially not the Ben Salem one.
No.
Yeah, you can tell us all our hot takes are terrible in person. It'll be great. But yeah, you could hear me just screaming in the background after they announced the Michkov pick. Like the elation of everybody at that draft party was so palpable. And we were all pretty much on board with the 3-year timeline.
Right, that was part of the deal. Like, we knew that going in, and that was the price you pay to get him at 7, as opposed to getting, you know, like, he's a guy with the talent he has. He could have gone top 3. You know, even like considering everything, he could have gone 4 or 5, and we were very lucky to get him at 7. But part of the reason we got him at 7 is because of everything to do with Russia and his KHL contract.
Yep. It actually was in my head this morning. I was like, what if the Flyers had the 2nd or 3rd overall pick in the 2023 draft? Like, reports make it sound like they fucking loved Michkov. Like, they were all in on him.
Yeah, I read a whole thing on The Athletic this morning that I think Kevin Kurtz wrote about, you know, the Flyers interviewing him and being all in and trying to see how can we get him. And it made it sound like that it was their, like, number one non-Bedard choice.
Yeah, so part of me is like, I wonder if they'd had the 2nd or 3rd pick, would they have still chosen him? And
Well, because
I don't know,
there is that
maybe.
report out there that if they tried to trade William Bill Cutter, aka formerly known as Cutter, we don't call him that anymore,
I do want to
Gautier.
talk about him later. I do want to talk about him later, but we'll get to it.
Oh yeah, but there was a report that they tried to trade Gautier to Montreal for the fifth pick, and they were going to pick Reinbacher with the fifth,
Hmm.
and then they would then take Michkov with the seventh because they knew that the Coyotes were not going to draft Michkov because
Right.
Michkov basically said, "There's not a chance in hell I will play for the former Coyotes, not even a franchise anymore."
The Utah Hockey Club,
The Utah Hockey Club, the Utes, the Flying Utes.
the Utes. Um, yeah, precisely. So it's just for all of those folks out there who are like, "Oh, don't get too excited." Why? Life is short. Enjoy things when they happen. Like let's relish this for just a little bit of time.
Life is short, and as a Flyers fan, there is not much to be excited for. This is
Oh,
easily
tell
the
me.
most exciting thing in the franchise right now. Like, if you look at the depth, like, there's some, there's players to be excited about. There's good young players. I like Cam York a lot. Jamie Drysdale's got some exciting talent.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's Oliver Bonk is
Hmm.
coming up. Tyson Forster looked
Typho.
fantastic. Oh, love Typho. And Bobby Brink's shown flashes. There are guys with a lot of talent, but Mishkov he's a game breaker. He is
Yeah.
potentially the best player certainly I would say the best talent this franchise has had since Claude Giroux as far as upside goes. But, you could say even as far as draft expectations go, maybe the biggest deal since Lindros.
Yeah. I mean, player comps are never a perfect art or a perfect science, but the one that's most commonly thrown at Mishkov is Nikita Kucherov,
Ooh.
who put up like 140 points or something this season and 100 assists. I think he's the first winger in NHL history to put up 100 assists.
Which is like when he's older too. Like Kucherov, he's not like
28 maybe, 29.
yeah, like if he had done this like 2-3 years ago, it wouldn't have been a surprise. People were kind of like, all right, is Kucherov kind of like,
Oh my god, he's 31.
yeah,
Holy
no,
shit,
that
he just turned
Kucherov has been
31.
he has
Wow.
been kicking around the league for a minute, man, and it was like one of those things where it's like Kucherov did that at 31. That's crazy, and it's
30. It was 30. That was
30,
my
but still, I
his age
mean,
30 scene, yeah.
dude, those are like prime numbers right there. Like that's what you
Exactly.
expect from Connor McDavid. That's what you expect from
Nathan McKinnon.
yeah, I was going to say those are the only two guys I'm expecting that from.
Yeah.
But Kucherov 2-3 years ago, sure, I was expecting that. But I think we were all kind of thinking, all right, he's going to start to slow down, and dude, not slowing down. So if the comp is Kucherov, I am elated over this, and I've literally got Mishkov highlights on my TV in the background right now.
No
That's how
shit.
excited I am. Yeah.
Oh man, I love that. The only downside is that because an ELC hasn't been reportedly signed yet, Dev Camp starts next week. So the going report right now is that it's unlikely he'll make it for Dev Camp. Anything could happen. Maybe the visa comes through real quick and he can be here, but
Listen, the Flyers have a friend in a very high place, and it's about as high as it gets. The First Lady of the United
it's
States is a
true.
noted Flyers fan. Jill Biden hangs a Danny Briere jersey on the back of her office door. So if there is one person to work out visa issues, it's the First Lady. So I think there's a slight chance of something happening. It would be very cool to see some strings pulled for the Philadelphia Flyers. But if he doesn't make Dev Camp, whatever, as long as he makes it here for training camp and he can start
Yes.
learning the ropes at that point.
Yes, and the Flyers, like, they brought over two Russians just this year. Kolosov, I think, took a couple weeks. Fedotov, it seemed like it took like 3 days. Like, I don't know how that came together so
I
fast.
think because it took like 3 years behind the scenes.
I was gonna say maybe they'd been working on it behind the scenes for so long that it was just like push a button and boop, everything was locked into place. But like this could take another couple weeks. Who knows? But shout out to the Flyers immigration department or whoever handles visa processing because that like having good ins is great because as far as I understand, like embassies in these countries are not open, so it's much more difficult to get visas for these kinds of for players from like Russia or even like Belarus, so where Kolosov is from. So
Let's keep
shout
that
out,
pipeline open, whatever we
yeah,
got to
let's
do.
do it.
Yeah.
Let's keep it rolling. Let's keep it flowing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and because he's now coming over. even if it is only for training camp in September, we've got an off season and a draft in a few days to consider.
I know it changes a lot
Yeah.
because when you're working on the assumption that your next big star player, you're the crown jewel, if you will,
Hmm.
of the next great Flyers team, if you're working on the assumption he's not going to be here for 2 years, then it's a real who gives a shit year. It's a real like, okay, let's just roll with the flow and like keep selling guys and just try to build this team up. But this dude's here,
Right.
and the team's not going to win this year. Like
No.
they might make the playoffs. I wouldn't be shocked by that. But like this team's not competing for a cup this year. But
No.
there is a thought that you could accelerate the timeline a little bit based on this. And this is all discussions we're going to get heavily into.
Yeah.
But just talking about this season, like I was doing a mock-up of the perspective lines, right?
Oh
And
yes.
just looking at that, I'm like, you got to trade somebody just based off of looking at the perspective lines.
Or
Like
buy someone out. Or buy someone out.
there's a couple buyout candidates for sure, but like just getting into the trade talk immediately. I mean, there was talk about trading Travis Konechny potentially because his contract. This is the last season of his contract, and he's going to have a big extension. I think the
Yeah.
expectation is the Flyers are going to sign him to an 8-year extension.
And I'm actually kind of on board with that. I might be in the minority, but I'm kind of like, you know what? Let's extend TK. I,
I'm with you.
yeah, I think, especially now that Mishkov's over, like, I think you absolutely extend him. Second of all, everyone's like, oh, trade him for future assets. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. Players of TK's caliber don't usually hit the free agency market. You usually have to trade for them in the last year of their contract, like what we would be doing with Travis Konechny. So if the Flyers need a winger of a similar grade in like 3 years' time, guess what they have to give up? Those same exact future assets that they received for Travis Konechny. Yes, they would be draft picks down the line when maybe they don't matter as much when you're going for it, but why not just keep the guy you know and seem to love? So
He
I'm,
fits
I'm
in perfect. He's super talented. He's
he
got the
plays
right
both
attitude.
wings.
Plays both wings, and his defensive game has just gone up a millionfold in the past like 2 seasons.
Here's another thought that popped into my head. I honestly think that TK might be one of the best mentors for Matvei Michkov because one of the biggest knocks against Matvei Michkov is his defense. Guess who learned how to play defense under Torts and is now one of the best PKers in the league? I'm not quoting stats on that. He scores a lot of shorties. He's really good on the penalty kill. Imagine if TK takes Mishkov under his wing and starts like teaching him how to kill penalties, how to play that defensive game. Like they're similar in height, I believe. Um, I think there's a lot that Mishkov could learn from Konechny on the defensive side of still being that offensive minded forward, but learning to play defense, you know?
Oh yeah. And TK might not wear the C on this
No.
team, but he has an A for a reason. He is a
He's the
leader in
heart.
that locker room. He is the
He's
heart
the
and soul
heart.
of this team. He is a flyer. He's an absolute freaking flyer over here. So like TK is a pivotal part, especially if you do want to accelerate that timeline. You need Travis Konechny in there.
Yep.
If you're a team that wants to compete for the playoffs, again, no, I'm not talking necessarily this season. This
No.
season is still pretty up in the air, but like they might compete, but they're not going to compete for a cup. But
No.
like the season after that, maybe it's time to start making some moves, wheeling and dealing. But like, you're
Small.
going to need TK in the next like 3-4 years if you want to start, you know, trying to advance that timeline a little bit. So he's an important player. So that's a big question. Another guy whose name gets thrown out a lot with this is Joel Farabee, who I'm a big fan of. I think
Yeah.
his contract is very team friendly right now. He makes five
Excellent.
mil a season for a few more years.
Hmm.
But like, you could also get some good assets for Joel Farabee, and if you have to clear. But here's the problem: you're looking at clearing winger space, and really, the Flyers are very heavy on the right side. Joel
Right.
Farabee is
Left winger.
he can play wherever, but yeah, he's a left winger, and I don't really know if he's the guy who makes sense to necessarily trade over there.
No.
I could see an argument either way.
I am not on board with trading Farabee unless it is for a like 22-year-old sure shot 1C. Like none of these players that we talk about for trades, I don't think the Flyers are shopping them and I don't think they need to be shopped.
No.
But if they can fill a gap in the lineup, then it makes sense. And as far as accelerating the rebuild, I'll have an article coming out on Broad Street Hockey tomorrow. Please like and subscribe about how Mishkov's early arrival does not accelerate the rebuild. It does not make this happen faster. Because if he had come over in 2026 as originally planned, that would be his D+4, his draft +4 season. This is his draft +2. The difference between a draft +2 and a draft +4 player is kind of significant, whether it's like physical maturity or puck skills, skating, all these different elements that go into player development. This is still going to just be a run it back year, find out, let Mishkov learn the ropes of the NHL, and just kind of see what he can do.
Oh man, I'm excited to see what he can do, and what I'm
Yeah,
hoping is that what he can do does accelerate it, because that's really what's going to, what it's all going to depend on is like exactly what he's capable of this point. What he can
right.
do in the NHL game, which we have no idea. The
No,
KHL, there's comparables, right? Like
sure.
there are certainly like things you can compare. You can look at precedents with other players and stuff, but like you can't say for sure what he's going to do,
No.
especially given what the Flyers have, and also the Flyers have so many question marks. Is Sean Couturier going to be healthy this year? Is Who are they going to trade? Because getting back to the trade block, like if you're looking down the list, right? You're looking at the roster.
Yep.
I would say Morgan Frost is like 50-50. I don't know what the hell they're going to do with Morgan Frost. I never know, but he's more of a center on this current squad. So Morgan
He's a
Frost, let's
center.
pencil him in at 2C right now.
Sure.
And Owen Tippett's not going anywhere. He just signed a big contract. It's
Yep.
pretty team friendly. Owen Tippett is a solid player. I have him on the third line in this perspective, but he's really a second line player. And I have him on the left wing. I don't know where they have so many right wings.
Yeah, he's a natural right winger, but he's been playing on the left wing most of last season, I believe.
Yeah, he's probably your 2L,
For this, yeah, I'd say, or Konechny is your 2L, and you have Farabee up there. There's Flyers have flexibility here. It's kind of nice to
for
see
sure.
for a change.
Tyson Forrester, he's definitely going to play a lot. He was such a
hmm
solid two-way player last year.
He
And
was
then
also
like
mostly on the left wing, by the way, last year.
Tyson Forrester. Okay, so Tyson
Uh-huh.
Forrester is going to be up there. So, but they have a lot of right-handed guys that can play both
For
ways over
sure,
there.
for sure.
Mishkov is the opposite, where he's a lefty who likes to play on the right side.
On
But
the right side.
yeah, but we're going to figure it all out. You just want to have talent. But those are all guys you're really not going to trade. So the
No.
other guy, the obvious trade candidate here, and this breaks my heart to say, but we've been talking about it. We all know it.
It's
Scott
Scott
Laughton.
Lawton.
Scooty Lutz, Scott Laughton. He makes the most sense. There's a lot of teams looking for the kind of locker room leadership he brings, the grit, the heart, all that stuff.
Yep.
And frankly, I think you're never going to get a better value for Scott Laughton than you will right now, because his numbers are not good. We all
No.
really love Scott Laughton for his attitude and for, all of his
Advocacy.
social cause.
Yeah.
The advocacy is awesome. He's one of the few players where you can really point at the advocacy he does in making a positive impact. He's a great guy. We freaking love Scott Laughton. But
Yeah.
if like, say this deal with the Ottawa Senators that's been reported out there is a real thing and Scott Laughton is involved, depending on what the deal is, you kind of have to make that, especially if you want to free up some space for some of these younger guys to play. And they're going to have other forwards on the way in the next couple of years that they have to find playing space for. So, they don't have much at the center. He can play center. He's not great at center, but he
Right.
can play it. But he's just the obvious trade target at this point. It sucks, but it's true.
No, you're right. I wouldn't just give him away. Like,
No, absolutely
yeah,
not.
no, it has to be like fair value, or as the Flyers put it, an overpay. But they said it had to be an overpay in the middle of the season. Now that it's the summer, maybe just fair value will get it done, or he'll be used as part of a trade to move up. You know, um, I pitched it in the Slack. Maybe the Flyers aren't just trying to move up from 12 to 7. They're trying to move up from 31 or 32 to 25 because the Senators have the 25th overall pick via Boston, I believe. Um, so that's another opportunity for them to move up in the draft on Friday. Um, Looking at the roster you've got here, Cam Atkinson buyout or trade really helps fix things quickly.
Yeah. And that's one where I would take on the majority of the salary for this season, because they're going to
Yeah,
have a couple mil to play around with within cap space. And,
sure.
if you can just trade them, like, not quite a Kevin Hayes deal, but something where essentially you're sending Cam to somewhere that maybe he'll have a chance to like do something positive,
Yeah.
and you retain some money. And dude, I don't even know if I need an asset back. I'm just trying to avoid buyout costs for next season. I just want, basically, I want that roster spot free, and I don't
Hmm.
want to feel the need to play Cam Atkinson because he makes over $5 million a season. And
No.
dude, Cam is another one of those. Seems like a really good guy. I
Yeah.
want nothing but the best for him. But like, he was cooked last year.
By the end of the season, it was rough. I I wouldn't mind holding or retaining salary. 50% would be fine. On the podcast, I usually talk about how I'm really against like too much retention because then it reduces your flexibility with other trades. Like at this last deadline, Danny Briere picked up a fifth round pick for retaining salary on no was it Noah Hannafin, I think, from Calgary to Vegas. Um, but it is the last year of Cam Atkinson's contract, which means I would be very okay with retaining 50% for like a fourth round pick because the Flyers don't have a fourth this year. So I'd kind of like to take that dart and shoot it at the board if it is 50% of Atkinson's salary.
If you can work a deal out like that, absolutely, because there's just not really, there's not room for him right now. Even looking at
Hmm.
some of the depth players, right? Like
Nick Delorier.
Noah Cates is a bottom six center for this team.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He is one of the top, or one of the bottom two line centers. Ryan Paling, same thing. Ryan
Yep.
Paling, great guy to have in the bottom of your lineup. He's not going anywhere, and he plays center, most importantly. Garnet Hathaway, pleasant surprise as far as depth forward goes. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think he's penciled in there easily. And then, one of the question marks is Bobby Brink, who was up and down last year. The
Toilet
coach,
seat
I was going to say the coach might say like a toilet seat, but he's a guy I want to see as much playing time for as possible
for
because
sure,
he's got a lot of skill. It's whether he can make it work at the NHL level that is the big question,
but not
and
on the fourth line because
not on
that
the
is
fourth
not
line.
suited to his role.
Right.
Yep.
I put him on the fourth line because I threw this roster together in 30 seconds, and I'm going to miss
Sure.
cap friendly and the capability to do this when it's gone.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. I miss it so much already, and it's not gone yet. But the Brinkster is not a guy you want on the bottom six. He's just not that kind of player. I absolutely don't want him down there. And there's not a lot of guys you could put in the like. If you move Scott Lawton, Bobby Brink has a spot in the
The
top
middle
nine.
six, yeah,
Yeah, the middle
top nine.
six. Yeah, exactly. But and you could put Scott Lawton on the fourth line. Nobody really cares. Scott Lawton's a great team guy. He'll go down there.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you can get anything for Scott Lawton at this point, like I think you got to do it. Like anything significant,
Fair value. Like
fair value.
I'm not trading Scott Lawton for like a fourth round pick.
No.
That's ludicrous, right? Like that's insanity.
If you get a
Um,
first, you have to. You get a second, maybe.
if he's used to move up, or if he's used as part of a larger package to land like that center that you really need.
Yeah.
Um, like if it's everyone knows how much I love Tim Stützle and how much I would love to have him on the Flyers, but you would need to put together a pretty big trade package to put that to like get that done.
Oh, a huge package.
Probably wouldn't
and
even happen. I'm just dreaming on it, but
if I was Ottawa, there's not a chance in hell I'm trading that guy because that's
I know.
you have
But
two guys who are the future of that team, and it's Tim Stützle and it's Brady Tkachuk.
and Jake Sanderson, but his name kept coming up apparently in trade talks as well, which is ludicrous to me. Like if Jake Sanderson was coming up in trade talks, then I wouldn't be that shocked for Stützle to come up as well. like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they're on that same kind of plane for me as far as how impactful they're going to be for that franchise in the future.
Yeah.
Zegras too. I don't think Scott Lawton alone gets you Zegras, but like Scott Lawton and Morgan Frost and maybe a pick. I don't know. That could do it.
Morgan Frost is a no-brainer there, and I like Morgan Frost, but like I don't know, he just never quite he hasn't quite clicked in a role that you in a way that you want him to here. And I think he's a guy who would I think do pretty well with a clean start somewhere.
Well, as far as this roster you've drawn up goes, I like him with Matvei Michkov because the skill of Morgan Frost, like the puck skills, has never been in doubt. And I think it'd be really interesting to see those two on a line together to
Oh,
see,
I just realized.
you know,
Let's
how
put
they feed off each
Typho.
other.
Let's put
I,
Typho on that line.
Typho is who I was going to say should be on the left wing of Morgan Frost and Matvei Michkov because he's a bigger player. He's one of the most effective forecheckers. He's really good against the boards. So you can just imagine, like, I don't know, maybe Morgan Frost blows in the zone, dumps the puck in, Tyson Forster goes to the wall, digs it out, centers it for Michkov. You can see how those plays could come together. I also would like Joel Farabee there too, because he's such a strong play driver. Being able to hold the zone and let Frost and Mishkov cook for a bit. I'm into that. Like, there's some options there, but I really like the idea of Forrester with Mishkov. Um, if everything goes perfectly at the draft, they can put Berkeley Catton between the two of them, and then it's just, oh baby, that's your first line for like a decade plus.
Oh God, I'm into it. I'm totally into it. It's such an interesting mix on this team. This is like, it's a pain in the ass team to talk about a lot of the time, but it's an
Sure.
interesting team because there are just so many dimensions. We haven't even talked about the defense yet, and the fact that. So
Yeah.
before we even get to that, I would also do anything to move Nick Delorier's contract. Like I'm sure he's a great locker room guy. I'm sure the coach likes having a tough guy to toss in there sometimes. The guy can't play hockey at 5-on-5.
No. Nope. And he's not good on the penalty kill anymore either. The, he the no trade clause on his contract expires on, I believe, June 30th. So on the first day of free agency, he is eligible to be traded, I believe. Um, he'd also, I guess, technically be a buyout candidate if you wanted to, but I don't know if it's worth it. It
It's
probably
not
wouldn't be
worth it.
that bad. It probably wouldn't be that bad of a hit. His contract's under 2 million.
Yeah, but like he's also, I'm perfectly content to just have him in the press box eating flyer shaped pretzels.
Yeah, he can be your 13th forward. Like, I don't know if Bobby Brink really fucks up again. Maybe bring in Nick Delorier is like the
Bobby Brink
consequence. But
is honestly, Bobby Brink's not a guy I necessarily want to trade, but if there was the right deal for somebody, I
hmm
probably would because I'm just not sure about the. And who knows how long Torts is going to be around, but I'm not sure about the Torts fit with all that. Because, like, where I think Mishkov, and we'll get into the Torts factor very shortly, but where I think Mishkov has talent to override any of that, Bobby Brink, I don't know that that's necessarily the case.
yeah, we need to see more basically. And I think we will get to see more. He needs a new contract. He's a pending restricted free agent. He'll probably get a bridge deal. So will Igor Zamula, I imagine.
I would not. I would be, not shocked if Zamula came back. Like I expect. I actually have him penciled into the bottom defensive
Oh
pairing
yeah,
with
there
Nick
he is.
Saylor here. So
hmm hmm
Zamula is one of those guys that I think is definitely going to be back because I posed the question like, do you think maybe this would have them bring in like a better kind of depth defenseman, like a maybe bring Sean Walker back or something. But I think you
Nah.
really just have to roll with like what you have right now. I mean, you've
Yep.
got Sanheim who's solid. Drysdale hopefully will learn more about actually playing defense from the current crew.
Yeah.
Cam York has been really, really good.
Yeah.
Risto's gotten better. He's not playing like his contract, but he's still like better than what he was 2 years ago.
And he needs to be healthy. He needs to be
Yes,
healthy. That's important.
big factor. Sealer has been solid, especially for what he is, and Zamula showed some flashes last year, so
He
I'm
was their
I'm
power
fine with
play
that.
QB. He was their power play QB for like 3 weeks because no one else could get the puck up to the net. It was
It's
the
crazy.
most. He had that bonkers goal scored too, right? Where everybody thought it was a Senators game because of course it was. The puck was like everyone thought the puck was like next to the net. They're digging around under the goalie, and then it just like plops in front of Zamula on the opposite side of the ice, and he wires it in. It was
Yeah,
just the most ridiculous. Oh boy.
I
I
like
could
Igor. I like
I
Igor.
like him. I
Yeah,
could also. I think they're gonna keep him because doesn't he live in the Mojo Dojo Holiday Inn, the Joel Farabee house? Um,
is that the
you,
case? I wasn't
I,
sure.
I think he does, and or he at least he's a frequent visitor. And you have to assume that if Mishkov comes, he's gonna need some help with translations, and Zamula's about the closest he's gonna get on the roster.
Farabee house, house,
The
house,
Farabee house.
Farabee house.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, well, and he's got Ivan Fedotov to talk to over there, so that's nice.
that's true. Yep,
Yeah. Yeah. Just building this little like anti Bobby Clark locker room over here. I'm into
I
it.
love it. I love it. Um,
No, these are
Yeah.
all really interesting factors with this team, and so I don't really think there's much else to talk about with the defense because I don't think they're going to really change anything on that. I mean, you've got interesting names coming up, like Oliver Bonk is a name you're going to be seeing up there in the next 2 years. I
Well,
would think.
the more important name you need to know right now is Ronnie Attard because he is not waivers exempt next year. So
Right.
he has to be on the team.
If they really care, which I think given Ronnie Attard's track record, I could see them going either way.
He was all right towards the end of the season with Adam
Yeah.
Ginning, right? And they just signed Adam Ginning. I talked about it on another podcast, but like you're looking at if they sign Eric Johnson, which if he's signed to like a $1 million 1 year contract, whatever, as your like eighth defenseman, fine. Um, you're looking at like 9 defensemen, like 9 NHL caliber defensemen on this roster. I don't know how those minutes are going to get divvied up, how that's going to work, but I think after what happened at the end of last season, where Sean Walker got traded, Drysdale was injured, Nick Seeler was injured, Risto was injured, Sanheim and York were both playing through injury. Like they're like, oh shit, we can't have this happen again. We got to have some depth. So
Yeah,
we'll see how it pans out.
the defense was a complete disaster along with the goaltending at the end of last season. I'm
Real
hoping
bad.
that the stability and having the group together at training camp will make a difference. But,
Yeah.
you know, this season really is like, let's ride, let's see what Michkov can do and who he has
Right.
chemistry with. Like, now that Michkov is here, my everything I'm going to be talking about all season is going to be, well, how does this relate to Matvei Michkov?
Yeah.
you know?
No big swings this summer. No big swings. No giving
No.
up future assets
There's
for
nobody worth
players.
taking a big swing on except for
Nope.
maybe a young guy like a Zegras or something like that.
I meant in free agency.
Oh,
Like
free agency? I want nothing to do with free agency.
no, free agency sucks this year. What are
It's
you gonna do?
terrible.
Sign Steven Stamkos? That'd be great, but
Yeah, what's he going to
he's
play?
played.
3 games?
Yeah, well, here's the other thing. He's played with Kucherov his entire career. Mishkov is player comped with
I mean,
Kucherov. Can you imagine those two? He'd be like, "Oh, I know how to play with this guy.
Steven Stamkos is unbelievable. He is
He's
like,
unreal."
even like when you consider the fact that he gets hurt a lot, like he's still unreal. Like he is, and that is, by the way, the most Flyers of old move that could happen is signing Steven Stamkos at the end of his career. Like Paul Holmgren, Bobby Clark, 100% would have done that.
Well, they're gonna do it next year when they sign Victor Hedman. So,
Dude, I'll tell you what, I'm in on that. Give me Victor Hedman because that's like old Chris Pronger over there, chestnut checkers.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Victor Hedman is like, that's a great hockey brain right there.
for sure. Right. What else have we got here?
So
Oh,
I want
yeah.
to know, as far as the power play, how do you think this affects the power play? Because
Well,
the
it
power
can't
play,
get any worse. It cannot get any worse.
well, that was honestly, you could argue that was one of the sole differences between the Flyers making the playoffs and missing the playoffs last year.
It's true.
Was the power play, because
It's
if they
true.
score even league average, that
Yeah.
team wins a way more games.
Yep, exactly. Um, yeah. If their power play gets a bit of a boost, that's great. Well, I don't have the percentages in front of me, but they were like, I think they're like 3 percentage points behind the 31st place team or something absurd. Like
They
it was
were the
really,
worst
really
team by
bad.
like a mile. They were
A
just
mile.
atrocious. It was painful. They looked lost out there, and I think what they've desperately needed is a finisher. Like
Yeah.
Travis Konechny's a really good like kind of jack of all trades on offense. He can do well. He's kind of a jack of all trades in general now.
Yeah,
But he puts up like pretty even points for the most part. They don't really have like I think the closest. Well, Tyson Forrester in theory is supposed to be that guy.
So
but it
Owen
turned out
Tippett.
yeah, and Owen Tippett. Owen Tippett, I mean, he had some struggles last year, but he ultimately had a good season. But he started off pretty slow. So, I guess in theory, I don't know. Mishkov, though, is just like, this dude knows
Yeah.
how to find the back of the net.
He does. I think their biggest problem was not finishers, because if you look at the roster, most of these guys are touted as goal scorers and not
Right.
playmakers. What they've lacked is a setup guy. So I don't know if Mishkov can keep up with the skill of Frost, and I'm sure he can.
I think he could surpass that.
I think he can surpass it. I wonder if maybe Frost can actually be that playmaker that we would have hoped for. But the power play can't get worse. So
Yeah. So,
hey,
hey, it'll probably help it.
it'll probably help.
Yeah. So I guess my other question, going back to the line mates, you'd mentioned like Frost and Forrester as potentials.
Hmm.
Anybody else that you see chemistry with on day one? I mean, certainly you want to think of him as a first line player, but there's no chance in hell John Tortorella is going to have that happen in the first year, or at least in the first 2 months.
I mean, putting him with Sean Couturier makes sense too. Like if they
I want it.
if the I know, I think that'd be great. I mean, Mishkov, Couturier, and maybe I don't know, Forrester'd be all right. Tippett'd be cool.
I mean, hey, you want to put
Tippett'd be
TK
real
on the left
cool.
side for that? That's fine with
TK
me.
over there.
Or you
Yeah,
want to put Michkov if Michkov can play the left and TK plays whatever works.
whatever
Okay,
works.
just get the talent together and shit will happen. But
Yeah.
with Sean Couturier, the thing is like, while he has lost a step for sure and has his injury issues, that hockey brain is still very much intact, and
Hmm.
he's a guy who will be defensive responsibly when Michkov might not be early on in his career.
Right. I mean, Couturier's brain is the hallmark of his game, and that's still intact. He'll be fine, I think.
Chestnut checkers.
Chestnut check. I've
Yeah.
told you before that there's a Pokemon named Chesnut, and every time you say Chestnut checkers, I just think of that Pokemon, but like playing checkers or something.
That,
Shout out my nerds out there.
there you go. Pokemon comes up very often on the pods these days because Quiggs loves to talk Pokemon too.
He and I are friends on Pokemon Go. So,
Oh wow! How
oh wow,
about that?
oh wow.
So, I guess the big question at this point is like the attitude issues, right? Because
Right.
the there, we mentioned the whole Russia factor as being one of the primary reasons why Mishkov dropped to 7 in that draft. But the other potential concern is attitude issues. Him thinking he's hot shit. He is hot shit.
He is
And,
hot shit.
kind of, I guess, not getting along great with his teammates. I mean, we've heard mixed reports out of Russia, and I don't even know how much you can trust those because, number one, we were translating those on Google Translate or relying on like secondhand translations. I don't really know how reliable all that is, and there's also
No.
a complete cultural difference. So
Sure.
I don't really know how it's going to play out, but from all reports, the Flyers aren't concerned about it.
No, and you referenced Kevin Kurz's article on The Athletic earlier in the pod, and he talks about that. And basically, Mishkov is like, look, I kind of got carried away because not everybody sees the game at my level, and it's not a question of their commitment or their dedication. It's just that they aren't on like the same level, and I can't expect the same results.
Everybody
And
else sucks. Matvei best.
yeah, hey, I mean, we kind of need some of that. We could
No,
use
we need
someone like
swagger,
that.
man. There's no
We need
swag on
that.
this team. Yeah, we need
No,
swag desperately.
desperately. I mean, when they drafted him, they were like, "Oh, how do you feel about coming to a rebuilding team?" And he's like, "I guess when I arrive, we'll start winning." And I'm like, "Oh, fuck yes,
That's
give
what
me
I
this
want to.
kid right
Oh yeah.
now."
Oh, I love that.
Oh yeah, baby, give
Well,
it to me.
because the Flyers. I mean, I don't know if the Flyers have had swag since the Broad Street Bullies. Like it's just
Mm,
not. It's not really a sport that lends itself to that. But we talked about like I mentioned earlier. Like this is definitely the most talented player since Giroux, but maybe the most hyped draft wise since Lindros. And Lindros was a freight train of a player. He had
yeah,
insane hands. His build was ridiculous. Mishkov obviously does not have the build of Eric Lindros, but
no.
he has skill for days. Like
He's
he
built
is
like a
just
tank too. Like we've all seen the workout videos. That dude is like, I bet he's real hard to knock off a puck.
the workout crew that could go in Philly right now between like Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, and Matvei Michkov is just like it's hardcore. The
We
squats are
we could
just out of this world.
You could call it the squat squad. Oh baby.
The
Oh
squat.
baby.
Yeah, I'm in on the squat squad. Let's do it.
Trademark it.
There we go.
But
Get the shirts out there, and they're just the peach emoji.
yep. I love that. And as far as to wrap up the attitude issues, he's a teenager. Teenagers are shitheads. Who
They are
among us
shitheads.
wasn't a shitty
They're
teenager?
cocky shitheads, but
Like
dude,
it,
I want a cocky shithead. I want somebody who thinks they're hot shit. I want somebody who thinks they're the best, And
yeah,
I guess the only concern at this point is like, how is that going to play with Tortorella? Because
not I don't have a concern in the world. Like I think Torts is gonna love this kid.
I think, he's got a good pipeline with management. This ain't Chuck Fletcher, This ain't Ron
Mm-mm.
Hextall. I think they all know they're on the same page here. Like, this is our bread and butter. This is something we need to make work out. So let's make it work out, Torts.
Yeah, exactly. and I think Torts is going to really appreciate his work ethic. I think he's also expecting some growing pains. Like he, there was one player this season, I think it was Zamula. He was like, he's learning the NHL, or some other player. He was like, we're going to give him some time to like acclimate, like get used to it. It's not like, oh, you've fucked up one game, you're out for a week. Only Morgan Frost gets that treatment, really. But
Morgan Frost, man, what a relationship he has. And it's funny because you had mentioned Zegras earlier, and we were talking about it in the Slack. And Zegras, there's always the joke, like, because Torts had kind of slammed Zegras when he did ESPN for a year, and when the Flyers keep coming up in the rumors, so there is some smoke around there. But
yeah,
the thing about Zegras is, he is known for being a little flashy, and I just thought it would be so funny if they did get Zegras and he played with Michkov and they combined to do like a double Michigan where they like passed each other the puck on their sticks and slammed it in. Oh man, Torts' head would explode. I would be here for it.
So the fun fact is, Torts kind of walked his comments back in a later broadcast that didn't get as much airtime. He was like, "I hope he does it again." Like, I feel like if I think if Mishkov went out and did the Michigan, Torts would probably just be really pissed about it, and then Mishkov would be like, "Fuck you, I'm gonna do it again," and then Torts would be like, "I love that shit." Like,
Oh yeah.
I love that you did that, man. Like,
But I think ultimately Torts is the kind of guy
stick it to me.
He just wants you to play hockey well,
And stand up for yourself. Like,
Yeah.
we all know the legendary day in January when Morgan Frost marched into the office of John Tortorella and they mud wrestled and, just like threw each other around until Torts was like, "All right, I respect you now."
Yeah, of course, of course.
That's exactly how it happened.
Yeah,
That's exactly how it happened. That's
Yeah.
100% what happened.
I actually heard that he beat him in Street Fighter 2.
Street Fighter 2, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
he
right.
respected that. Yeah, Torts just plays as Ryu, but Matvei Michkov is going to play as Zangief.
Yes, love it.
That's
that's how they'll settle their differences. There's a Street Fighter 2 vintage arcade game in the locker room.
I would not surprise me in the slightest. Absolutely not surprise me.
Not at all.
So, I mean, hey, this is a team that plays the Squirtle sax song to celebrate wins. So
they weren't the first one to do it, but yes, it's very fun.
Listen,
we love it.
They did it, and I respect the hell out of it. That's for sure. I love this last question that we have on the questions here, and I know you added this, and I absolutely love it. So, one of the infamous things in Flyers history at this point is that the Flyers, along with the Lady Byng, they've never won a Calder. They're never going to win the Lady Byng. This is not a franchise, and I hope they never do. That was the old Flyers faithful motto: was waiting with bated breath for the Flyers to win a Lady Byng. It's a bullshit trophy, and nobody cares. But the Calder is one that is very surprising because the Flyers have had significant rookies that have never won the Calder for Rookie of the Year. The most infamous recent case was probably Shane Gostisbehere. Shane Gostisbehere had an unbelievable rookie season. He lost out. Eric Lindros didn't win one. I think the other two that were pointed out by a friend of the show, Wayne Fish. We love Wayne Fish around these parts. We use the Wayne Fish emoji constantly in the Slack because that means you're late with news. You're the second person to report it because Wayne Fish checks his sources. He makes sure it's 100% right, and he gets back with confirmation on the goal a day later. But I did find a Wayne Fish article about Tyson Forrester being.
Wait, before you continue, that's why we do the Fish in the Slack?
Yes.
Okay, now I understand it. I 100%. Always just wondered, what's the fish? I don't get it. Now I get it.
It's Wayne Fish.
Fantastic.
Because Wayne Fish is always like 10 minutes behind everybody else with the news. It's fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Learned something new today. Anyway, Tyson Forrester.
So he wrote an article about Tyson Forrester having a chance last year to be the first Flyer to win a Calder. And he had detailed a couple of the other close calls. So Bill Barber came very close back in the 70s. And Ron Hextall in the 80s. Ron Hextall's a wild one because he won the Vezina as a rookie. By the way, terrible numbers by today's standards, but that was just 80s hockey.
That was the 80s.
And he won the Conn Smythe that year on a losing team. Just a ridiculous year for Ron Hextall. And he lost out to Luc Robitaille, who, Luc Robitaille, unbelievable player, but like Ron Hextall won best goalie as a rookie. I don't know. It kind of seems like he should have won Rookie of the Year to me, but that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. No, what makes this intriguing?
Michkov could be the first.
Michkov could be the first. You know who else is Calder eligible next year?
Macklin Celebrini.
Well, Macklin Celebrini will be Calder eligible as well, but
There's somebody besides him?
there's someone besides him, Steve.
Oh,
There's
wow.
probably a few players, but there's one that Flyers fans are especially familiar with. One William Cutter Gauthier will
Oh,
be Calder
baby.
eligible next year.
Mild Bill Gauthier. Let's go.
Mild Bill Gauthier. So I I can you imagine if it turns into like Matvei Michkov, Macklin Celebrini, and Cutter Gauthier as the three finalists for the Calder?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
this fan base is gonna lose their goddamn minds.
Dude, that first Ducks game at the Farg is going to sell out so fast.
I kind of want to go. I'm excited to go to the season opener now. I want
Oh
to go
my
see it.
god. Dude, the season opener is going to be lit. It's going to be fantastic. That Ducks game is going to be great. It's exciting to go to Flyers games again and have a
Just
guy of this
yeah,
caliber. But dude,
I can already hear Lou Nolan going Matvei Mishkov. Like it's gonna be
oh,
great.
oh yeah, I got chills thinking about it. It's great. But I love the idea of the Calder coming down to these two guys. I do wish nothing but the worst for Mild Bill for Gautier over there because he just still has not admitted why he wanted out, and
Yeah.
I find that cowardly. Just tell us why. But overall,
Tell me
like,
why.
ain't nothing but a sad boy. I don't
Amazing.
understand, and I just want to know. I just want to know what we did to hurt you because we were all excited for you, and we wanted to see you with Matvei Michkov, not against Matvei Michkov. And I want this Calder so bad. I want a
Hmm.
Flyer to get it because they should have won one by now. It's ridiculous in the storied franchise history that there has not been a Calder win. And Mishkov, man, it feels like we're owed a lot by the hockey gods at this point, and this is just the start of it. I want
Hmm.
to see him just have a fantastic rookie season, and I want to see him blow Bill Gauthier away for the Calder.
I mean, this might be the best shot the Flyers have got at a Calder winner in the foreseeable future. Like maybe Oliver Bonk comes in and lights the league on fire. I don't think that's quite going to happen. Maybe they do get Berkeley Catton in this draft and he lights the league on fire in a couple years. But like this is a bona fide superstar ceiling prospect coming into the league. He's the best shot they're going to have, I think, for a little while.
Yeah, for sure. So, guys, be excited, okay? I don't
It's
care
fine.
what certain hot take columnists or other pods might tell you. Be
Weasels,
excited.
specifically weasels.
Weasels, man. Weasels are a
Fucking
problem.
weasels.
We got to
Fucking
get it.
weasels.
Got to take care of those weasels, man. Get somebody on it.
Jake Voracek, exterminator.
Oh yeah, weasel exterminator. Dude, I can't stand it. I hate when the hot take columnists do this kind of stuff. It just drives me nuts. So don't
They'll be the
listen to
first.
these jerks.
They'll be the first to drag Mishkov when he isn't playing well on
Yeah.
game two.
Don't listen to these jerks. They're idiots. They don't care about having fun with hockey. Hockey is supposed to be fun. Let's have fun for it with it. Let's be excited. I'm pumped.
Sports are supposed to be fun.
They
Like
are.
look at the Phillies. They're having the greatest time of their lives.
Those
That's why we enjoy
himbos
it.
are
Those
having the
himbos.
best time. They're just the
Hmm.
best. I love them so much. And I want to love the Flyers like that again. And we're part of the way there now. And I
Yeah.
can't wait till everything's official. And I can't wait to see this dude in a Flyers jersey.
Yep.
This might be, I have not purchased a new Flyers jersey in a long time. This might be worth it.
Might be worth it. Might be worth it. Hopefully they can get one before Fanatics fully takes over, but
Oh, God.
we'll see.
Jesus. Yeah, you'd probably be better off making a custom at that point.
Yeah. Also, this is a little off topic, but speaking of sports being fun, tonight is the Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. Who you
Ooh,
got?
yeah.
Who you got, Steve?
God, I think at this point, all the momentum's on Edmonton's side. And, like, dude, they had their chance to put away Connor McDavid.
They
And
did.
they let the beast get
Three
unleashed.
times. 3 times.
You know, like, that's just, and I think Quiggs had said it when we talked early on in the series. If it gets to a game 7, my money's on McDavid. And, I mean, I think win or lose, McDavid's winning the Conn Smythe. I mean, I looked at the odds on one of the betting sites earlier today, and it was minus 3,000 in favor of
Jesus.
McDavid. You know, he is the odds on favorite, and for good reason. He's unbelievable. He set an assists record for the playoffs this year. And I got to go Edmonton. That's who I'm feeling right now. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Florida. It really feels 50-50, but like my bones say Edmonton. How about you?
I'm there. I tweeted right at the beginning of the finals. It's Panthers in 6 because if it gets to 7, Connor McDavid will not allow the Oilers to lose. He will just not permit it. He will like he will prostrate himself across the ice before losing in Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final. He will find a way to win. Um, if the Oilers don't win, I am still very much on the Alex Barkov for Conn Smythe train because holy shit, the stats of how he has just shut down McDavid for this series is unreal. And in that abysmal Game 6 for Florida, he was the only Panther who showed up, the only Panther forward who showed up to play.
He's probably the best draft pick in Panthers history.
Um, yeah. I mean, Huberdeau was real fucking good for a while before he got sent to Calgary, but
The thing with
I think
Barkov was that was the Seth Jones draft. And
mhm.
I think a lot of people were expecting Seth Jones to go earlier. I think McKinnon ended up, it was McKinnon, then
McKinnon
Barkov,
was
right?
one, then Barkov.
What a ridiculous top two. Ridiculous.
Insanity, insanity.
So, like, people were kind of expecting, like, all right, well, is Florida going to go with Seth Jones? Because Seth Jones was such a big deal in that draft. And then
Yeah,
they picked Barkov. And we're like, all right, I mean, I get it, but it
they
might be
needed a
risky.
C.
And man, was that the right call? That,
That
you
was
know,
the
Seth
right call.
Jones is at the point in his career where it's kind of like, okay, I mean, he's not really good anymore, but all right, fair enough. He at least had his heyday. He had a time, but like Barkov, he was called the most underrated player in the league for years,
Years.
and he finally like, you know, he's the mainstream now that Bergeron retired, right? Like he is the
Hmm.
guy.
He is.
So he's just like,
Well, until Tyson Forster starts winning those Selke
oh
trophies for his
baby,
defensive impact.
let's do it. I'm into it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I he's not underrated anymore. I mean, everyone has been talking about these Stanley Cup playoffs as McDavid's time to shine and introducing McDavid to the hockey world or to the wider viewing audience, to the East Coast. They've introduced Barkov in a similar fashion, but again, in the shadow of McDavid and Draisaitl, so
It's a hell of a series, man. It's
it is.
really been one of it might be one of the best, finals ever just because like I don't think there's been a 3-0 comeback since was it the 70s or was it like the 40s? It's been
A
forever.
successful one?
Yeah. It was
42, I believe. It was the
42, yeah, the
Leafs and Red
Leafs.
Wings, but
Yeah.
that was during World War II, so like none of
Shit.
the hockey players were actually here. They were all off fighting.
Yeah.
And it's such a different era that you really can't talk about it. I think it was Sean McIndoe over at The Athletic did like, this isn't just a historic collapse in NHL history, but it might be the most historic collapse in all of sports history, like modern sports history. So I'm so excited to watch tonight's game.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. It's going to be an awesome game 7. Like it's
Yeah.
going to be a hell of a showdown. I am just pumped for it and if you're listening to this tomorrow, then congrats to whatever team won, and I hope we all had
We're
fun
gonna
watching it.
we'll get our pick 31 or 32 confirmed, and hopefully one day we'll be able to see our team, the Philadelphia Flyers, in such a hopefully not like a do or die Game 7 where they gave up a 3-0 lead, but a similarly exciting sporting event.
I'll take the playoffs at this point. I'll take the
Oh yeah,
playoffs and man, it's just nice to think about a possibility of years from now talking about that where before Mishkov, you're like, I don't know when the hell it's going to happen.
yeah.
And
Hey,
now there's a guy
I've
we
never
can
seen the playoffs in person. Flyers playoffs in person.
It's fun, man. It
I
really
can't
is.
wait.
When it's fun, it's the best. It is so much fun. I I just like I can now feel like I have a guy I can envision taking us to the promised land. Like
Yeah,
I had a time where Giroux was that guy. I love Claude Giroux, and the team
miss
never
him.
supported him as much as they should have. I bring him back, frankly, for one more run back at it. Why not?
Sure,
Sign
why
that
not?
team friendly deal. Come on back. But this is a guy I can see being the key cog, and this is finally a modern talent for the Flyers, which is so exciting to me. Because this is a team that really has gone by with old school guys. A lot of like, I love Wayne Simmons. Wayne Simmons is a prototypical Flyer, but
Yeah,
Wayne Simmons is a guy who hit and scored ugly goals a lot. Like
yeah.
that's the franchise. And Mishkov is a guy who, man, he scores some pretty damn. I've had Mishkov highlights on this entire time, and I'm just watching just such skill and talent and just pretty goals here.
I'm so happy that like Briere has decided like this is the direction we're going. And also major credit to Brent Flair, the AGM, who's kind of like the draft guru for the Flyers. You could see that they started taking this kind of approach to drafting a couple years ago. Cutter Gauthier was a late riser, and they picked him at 5, and he didn't work out, but you know, it was a big swing. Tyson Forrester was a player whose skating was rated as poor, like genuinely bad, and they took a swing on him in the first round, and look at him now. Um, so I think there's a lot of good stuff happening in that Flyers front office when it comes to the draft, and we get to see what they do on Friday. Uh, Come hang out with us at Chickies and Pete's with all PHLY at the Packer Avenue Chickies and Pete's for the BSH PHLY draft party.
Yes, it's going to be so much fun, guys. We always have a
Yeah,
blast at the draft party. And the fact that we're doing this in conjunction with our old friend Bill Metz and the PHLY crew is fantastic. I think this might be the biggest one yet. I'm just so
yeah.
pumped for this.
There's going to be some prizes. There's going to be some special guests.
Ooh, yeah, that's
Um,
right.
yeah, there's some special guests coming. Um, and Ryan Gilbert and I are going to get a pod out later this week where we go over beyond the first round. So players that have popped up through the draft guide that I've been reading through, and just some names of some guys that might be intriguing options in like rounds 2 to 7.
That's a great plug right there. And I'm excited to hear that because I know nothing about the draft. And on the note of knowing nothing about the draft, I am going to be doing a real dummies guide to the draft with Maddie Campbell later this
Oh
week,
yeah,
where we're just kind of going through the first round, guys, the possibilities for the first round, the big like highlight stuff, and just we're gonna kind of break down each guy in depth and talk about the possibility, the fit for the Flyers, the possibility of the Flyers trading up for those guys, and really just get into it, but try to put it in real dummy terms because I am a
yeah.
dummy when it comes to the draft.
Have you got a guy? Have you got a guy in the draft that you're like, I want him? That's who I want
I,
at 12.
dude, I really don't know. We were talking about this up on a Bach bar a couple weeks ago,
Right.
or last week, right? Last week,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I don't.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't even know that there's necessarily a guy. I've heard some great stuff about Berkeley Catton at this
Yeah,
point.
he's my guy. I want
Yeah,
I want him bad.
I like Catton from what I've heard. I like Tisha Ginla a lot.
Sure.
I don't know really about a lot of the other guys, but those are guys that I've definitely circled as potentials for the Flyers. But I've seen a lot of names, and I'm going to try to learn more. And that's going to be recorded either Tuesday or Wednesday, so that'll be out sometime this week, but well before the draft. So you can bone up, and then you can come drink a couple beer towers with your friends at BSH and PHLY.
Fan fucking tastic.
Outstanding. Joe, thanks for joining me on this. I know we were like, oh,
Yeah.
this might be 20 minutes, but we ended
30
up going an
minutes.
hour. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's Mishkov. We've been waiting a year for this, so it's an exciting time. And
It's it's Michkov, and you got two guys who can talk together, and that's what happens.
that is exactly what happens. And if you want to hear me talking more, you can read my writing over at Broad Street Hockey and find me in the comments section because I get ideas for podcasts and articles in there. Thank you for interacting. And you can also find me on Twitter at JF DeMarini. How about
There
you,
you
Steve?
go. You
Where can
got
they
right
find
to it.
you?
Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
hell yeah.
Oh, I
Oh,
like
hell
that.
yeah.
I like that. That's the Italian Joe flavor right there. And yeah, I don't read the comments because my mental sanity would break if I did. But you can find me on Twitter/X and Blue Sky over at Flyperbole or Esteban. If it's for hockey purposes, make it Flyperbole. Flyperbole is also on Instagram and on TikTok, so you can find me over on all that good stuff over there. So yeah,
Hell yeah.
awesome. I'm glad we collaborated today. This was a lot of fun. We'll have
Yeah.
to do more collaborations over the summer and the coming season.
Hey.
Very excited, but you guys are doing a great job. Keep on doing that, and we hope to see you all at the party on Friday.
Hell yeah. Go Flyers.
Go fly! Let's go Flyers! All right,
Woo!
folks. Woo! Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, in the words of the great Gene Hart, good night and good hockey. Wow, 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 wow. And one more time, thanks to our friends at Bet Online for sponsoring the show. Be sure to use promo code BLEAV, BLEAV, for 50% welcome bonus.